Brie Larson enters the MCU, and she brings with her a fringe ideology, but one that appears to be growing in prominence, maybe because the rules don't matter. It's very religious, right? When I grew up, I looked at the religious right as being contradictory, like they contradict themselves in their own rules. It didn't quite make sense. There's no evidence to believe, what they believe. It was faith-based. And you know what? I grew up and eventually said, you believe whatever you want, right? I'm going to do my thing, you do yours, we live peacefully. We now have people like Brie Larson and others who believe things without evidence. Or I should say, we have a group of people and institutions that are increasingly putting out nonsensical studies, as was documented by the Sokol Squared hoax, people like James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, Peter Boghossian. They were putting out total nonsense studies and getting people to believe this stuff. Brie Larson on diversity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We gotta move faster. Well, we don't. We have to make good movies, and we have to make movies about different characters. It's really funny, right? One of the movies that's going to be coming out soon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Shang-Chi, I believe it's called. And it is the best kung fu master on the planet, something like that. And this is going to be like an Asian-style movie. Interestingly, though, because of their own ideology, they removed the Asian character from Doctor Strange, the Ancient One. The Ancient One in Doctor Strange is an old Fu Manchu Asian stereotype, I guess. And they were concerned that would be offensive. So they took Ancient One's character, they gender swapped and race swapped to Tilda Swinton, saying, if we do a Celtic woman, that would be better. Because they didn't want to be stereotypically, Asian or whatever. That would be offensive. It was still offensive. Because the ideology has no rules. Well, Brie Larson wants to move faster. What ends up happening is, well, that's basically it, right? You end up with these contradictory systems where they say, take the stereotypical Asian out. We don't want a kung fu ancient master. Let's do a kung fu ancient master movie entirely. Okay, but Shang-Chi isn't like an ancient master, though, so that's a bit wrong. I'm not super familiar with Shang-Chi. I think I'm getting the name right. But it's going to be like, they did Black Panther. It was predominantly a black cast. They're going to do Shang-Chi, which is supposed to be predominantly an Asian cast with an Asian lead. And what's really mind-blowing about Brie Larson, and what I find particularly offensive, is, I gotta say this, Brie Larson is one of the most narcissistic, arrogant people I have ever seen in public, like in public as a public persona. Listen, Jennifer Lawrence is incredible, and she led the Hunger Games franchise, 4 movies. Boom, lots of money, okay? She is not, and now she's in X-Men as one of the main characters, and has like some of the most screen time. It is not a new phenomenon that you have women leading franchises. I mean, look at Resident Evil. I mean, look at Underworld. My God, these are successful movies. They keep making more. How many Underworld movies did they make? Come on. Brie Larson comes out talking about how, in an interview, she's like, I'm so proud to be at the start of this, to prove that women can lead these franchises. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. A lot of people talk about how it's like, why is she erasing these other movies, these other franchises, these other much more popular, likable, and famous celebrities, female celebrities. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is substantially more prominent and one of the highest paid actors in the world. Scarlett Johansson's way better than Brie Larson in terms of acting ability. And does Scarlett Johansson come out and say these things? She doesn't. Did Gal Gadot? Not really. Like, even with Black Panther, you had Michael B. Jordan, Killmonger, was talking about how, when they went to South Korea to promote the movie, you had a bunch of people come out in their traditional South Korean clothing, because it was like, hey, this is really cool. We're all kind of trying to represent, part of our culture and our past. And it was a cool thing. And that's how you do it right. I think Marvel has the ability to do it right. Unfortunately, I'm getting kind of worried. I made several videos in the past talking about how I think that the MCU is kind of done from here. And it's not necessarily Brie Larson. It's the writing of Captain Marvel, for one. I'm gonna have some spoilers for Endgame. I have to. So I'm gonna do another 10 seconds warning. You are being warned. There will be some spoilers now, because I need to talk about the poor writing that was Captain Marvel and explain what the problem is with all of this. You have been warned. Before I talk about Endgame, though, you get a little bit more time. I look at Shang-Chi, and I think it's going to be great, right? You guys know I have some Asian ancestry. I don't really care, right? I just want to see a good movie. I thought Black Panther was pretty good. I really thought Black Panther was a pretty good movie. They handled politics really well in that movie by showing T'Challa was like an ethno-nationalist, which I completely disagree with, and Killmonger was an ethno-globalist, and I disagree with both of that, because I don't like government based on race, but that's what they were going for. Ultimately, T'Challa sees the error of his ways, and they open up Wakanda to the rest of the world. So there you go, good thing. What they did in that movie was they had a predominantly black cast. They had some Asian characters and they had some white characters, and they were all depicted as good characters. End of story. Right? So it's fine. You've got some black characters, they're great. You've got some white characters, whatever. And that's how you do a good movie. The same is true if the movie is predominantly white, like many of the Marvel movies have been. When Marvel does Shang-Chi, I don't care about the race of the characters. Sure, have them be Asians, whatever. Just don't mock and belittle people based on their race. Don't be racist. Is that so hard? Don't be racist and sexist. It's not a hard thing to do, right? We saw that with Gillette. Unfortunately, and here come the spoilers, Captain Marvel is one of the worst written characters I have ever seen. It is mind-blowingly bad. Listen, Captain Marvel in an Endgame and her movie is just literally Deus Ex Machina. It's they just write themselves out of these holes and it makes no sense, and it breaks the continuity of the movie to an extent. And Captain Marvel's not the worst of this. Right? One of the biggest problems with Endgame was how they don't follow the own rules of. So in the beginning, they're like, time travel. We're going to do this, and this is how it works. And then quite literally, they don't follow their own rules of time travel. It doesn't make any sense. I won't get too much, and I won't give away too many spoilers. But in terms of Captain Marvel, let's talk about, Captain America, scrawny, Iron Man, on the verge of death. I just watched Iron Man 1 last night, and he says in the cave, like, I've got 1 week to live. And then you have, what's his name? The other guy who was with him in the cave. He says, it's going to be a very important week. And then Stark builds the arc reactor to save his own life. That was amazing. And what did we want in Endgame? Okay, in the beginning of the movie, in Endgame, Tony Stark's in the ship, they're dying. You saw that in the trailer. And lo and behold, Captain Marvel just appears and saves them. Now, why and how, sure, I can make up in my head how Captain Marvel happened to be there and travel the thousands of light years or whatever to find them. I can make up in my head why their ship was dead, just not moving in space. Because that's how space works, I guess. But what it does is, first of all, Tony Stark was supposed to pull off one last hoorah. We saw in the trailer he's working with Nebula, and everyone assumed, like, oh man, he's going to be on the verge of death. And then he's going to go, oh my God, and he's going to do something. And he's going to save himself. He didn't. He didn't save himself. Why? Because Deus Ex Machina arrives. If Tony Stark saved himself, okay, it would have been within his character and his arc, and it would have made a bit more sense. I have no problem with the overt writing themselves out of these issues, because you look at, like, Infinity War, right? They're on the dying star, and then Eitri the dwarf says, legend has it you could summon the Bifrost. And it's like, oh, how convenient for you to be able to teleport to Wakanda. How the hell did Thor even know to go to Wakanda, right? There's a lot of problems with these movies. But I still loved Infinity War, and I still love Endgame, and I actually don't have a really big problem with Captain Marvel necessarily. The issue is, in an effort to extremely pander, they did several things in Endgame, okay? For one, they have this girl power scene that many people were groaning at. It's like, something happens, oh God, it's so awful. Some woman, one of the female heroes jumps down and says, like, I'll take you on, and he's like, you're alone. And it was just like Infinity War. And then Okoye, I think it pops up and goes, she's not alone. And then a bunch of the female heroes stand up and start walking, but they lose. Captain Marvel challenges Thanos. She, like, flies from nowhere. She just comes out of nowhere, blows up his ship entirely on her own, wiping out most of his army and his forces and his weapons. And then she fights him. And she's standing there just easily overpowering Thanos. He headbutts her, and then she just smiles. And I'm like, no. No. Thanos is the big bad. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to set her up to be more powerful, to expand, because in the next phase of the MCU, there's going to be the Eternals and all this stuff, right? The Celestials, the Eternals, whatever. So she has to be more powerful. But you can't make her perfect and invincible. She's smart. She's always there on time. Her powers seem to be limitless. She takes out Thanos on her own. The only reason Thanos doesn't lose is because he pulls the Power Stone out and then punches her with it. And it's like, okay, listen. She doesn't have to be perfect, and she needs room to grow. So the issues I have with why I'm concerned about the expansion of the universe is, For one, look, I threw my criticism at Brie Larson. It is so absolutely arrogant of her to talk about how she is the one leading this and proving women can lead franchises when they've been doing it for a long time. Man, Underworld, I love the Underworld movies, right? You also have, to a lesser fanfare, Twilight, you know, with Kristen Stewart, whatever her name is. But The Hunger Games was huge. And Jennifer Lawrence is a superstar. And she's one of the leading characters in X-Men. So who does Brie Larson think she is? She's had one movie and essentially a cameo in Endgame. But she comes out, it's very, very disconcerting. As I mentioned before, I'm sure, you know, you talk to her in person, she seems fine. I think a lot of people do blow out of proportion things she says. There's an interview she did on the red carpet, and she's just nice. Like, she has bad politics, and she's kind of narcissistic. But there's something that comes with her ideology and narcissism. They're like oblivious to the world around them. It is inherent narcissism that attracts people to that ideology where they think everything is about them. So let's wrap this back up with the MCU, diversity, Brie Larson. Here's the thing. Thought Black Panther was good. I think it was definitely overhyped, but Black Panther made a lot of money. It's my understanding because it was a really big deal for the Black community. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know that community, but I thought Black Panther was good. And if they can do more movies like that can unify people, bring people together, I'm totally for it. There was some, anger at Black Panther, but for the most part, not really. Most of the things we hear about Black Panther from like the anti-SJWs is that it's not as good as they claim it is. And I think that's kind of fair. Like, there's a lot of people acting like it's the greatest movie ever. Oh no, it was a good movie. I think some of the criticism is fair, like the ending battle in Black Panther was really, really overly CGI. Whatever. I liked it. I thought the movie was interesting. I'm sure Shang-Chi will be good. Captain Marvel was bad. And it's unfortunate. I think the Russos did a better job with Captain Marvel because they're just much better at what they do than whoever these directors were. But if you plan to launch the next phase of the MCU with Brie Larson, who is very arrogant and narcissistic and seemingly oblivious to the rest of the world, and she wants to push this bad version of diversity, whereas we can do good diversity, then we're in trouble. We're in trouble. I didn't even read this article, but we'll just, basically she said, I'm happy to be on the forefront of the normalization of this type of content and to prove once again that representation matters. Diverse storytelling matters. The female experience matters, and these are markers. So it's something I've always known, and I think a lot of people always knew, but this is just normalizing. But why? Why are you normalizing this? This is what's mind-blowing to me. I think a lot of people on the left don't see this. I think they don't see this. They don't understand. Because for one, they're unwilling to watch content like this or, and I think there are some abrasive types that are definitely on the anti-side or the pro side, like whatever. People can be abrasive. I try not to be. But listen, Brie Larson is acting like she's the most important person here. It's just not true. It's great. Hey, good for her. I personally think she was miscast. There are a lot of better choices. Karen Gillan, oh my God, was she amazing in Endgame. She is a fantastic actor. Just really, really great. She said having little girls come up to her and say thank you has made her surprisingly emotional. I don't think we think about that all the time as kids. I think we accept what we have. But to see this new generation of boys and girls, or kids who don't identify as either, being able to see this on screen and to know now and to not know anything different is really exciting. Listen, it's true that the first big three characters are white men. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. Yes. I think it is absolutely great that they're going to be creating characters of different cultures and backgrounds. It's a great thing. We've had movies like The One. I thought the movie The One with Jet Li was awesome. We've had Jackie Chan movies. I don't think it's fair to point out they're stereotypical. These are quite literally people who are masters of their cultural trade representing them on screen. So, to act like the representation hasn't happened before is unfair. What we're now looking for is a more Americanized representation. But Black Panther isn't that. It's an Africanized representation for the Black community or for just general audiences. We can do diversity right. We can represent people. We can have movies that have non-white men leads, and we don't have to act like white men are bad all the time. The way I see it is, everything's going fine in this country until the regressive left started emerging and smack-talking people for their race and identity. Like, the white population has been increasingly race mixing, and also just not having that many kids. And so ultimately, we know, based on statistics, that I think by like 2050, white people in America will be a minority. Some white people are threatened by that. Most don't care as long as they're able to live freely and peacefully and do what they want to do. But when you have an emergence of this like diversity, regressive, identitarian crowd that starts, insulting people and being racist, they actually create the alt-right. They create a sect of people who are racially awakened, as the alt-right calls it. Sarah Jong is a really good example of that. It's this Asian woman who for years posted this vitriolic racist content on Twitter, and she gets hired at the New York Times. And the response from the alt-right was praise. They like that. What I like is just respecting each individual and judging them based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. So ultimately, what I'm concerned about is Brie Larson is leading the next phase of the MCU. She is a regressive, authoritarian, identitarian. She is. I'm sure she's nice in person, but her views are terrifying. And she's an arrogant narcissist who thinks she's the first person to lead a franchise, apparently. Like, little girls coming up and saying thank you. It's like, what are you teaching kids? It's not the first time this has happened. And you know what? Someone's going to come after Brie Larson and say the same thing she did, because she's erasing the accomplishments of other women. How is that acceptable? But ultimately, it leads to a dangerous place. I think the MCU is going to be fractured, and I don't know how they're gonna move forward ultimately. I think Endgame was universe breaking in a lot of ways because it was big fan service. Definitely universe breaking in a lot of ways. I don't know how they recover from it. I've already spoiled some of it, so here's a major spoiler. Most of you probably knew there's a time jump. Well, the time jump is permanent. So the MCU is now in front of us, as opposed to supposed to being within these years. I don't understand how they're going to take care of that. The time travel stuff broke its own continuity. There's a bunch of other things that make no sense. And I guess we'll see what happens. But I think, again, I'll end with one thing. I think the reason they're trying to overplay how strong Captain Marvel is without writing to why she is, like, there's no, like, you could have done character development to let us understand why she's so powerful. No, it's like she's literally a human. Boom, she's a god. But they're setting up more powerful celestial foes, so I guess that's the reason, but, whatever. I'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Otherwise, I'll ramble too long. I got more videos coming up for you later today. Next video at 4 p.m. on my main channel, youtube.com/Timcast. Yes, it is different. I will see you there.